let's talk about Bitchat.
Okay.
Because I'm getting fired up about this. So I just want to mention maybe a little bit what I'm getting excited about. I know Steve, as the resident contributor here, he'll probably have a lot to say on Bitchat as well. But I just have to say it is so fucking cool. And, you know, honestly, shout out to Jack, because that man always has a vision. And like I didn't see him taking this step, but the more I see it, the more I see the way the pieces are coming together, and it's fucking cool. So for those of you who don't know, so Bitchat, just as a reminder, it started off as a mesh network, right? So you download Bitchat, you can chat with other people that are within whatever the radius is in your mesh, which is your Bluetooth. And in theory, you can route messages over different hops in your Bluetooth network. A lot of cool things you can do with that. We discussed on prior episodes of PBJ. If you want to go find the earlier episodes, where might this be used? I believe concerts and other peer-to-peer exchanges were some of the ideas that we bandied about. The coolest thing though that just dropped is, I don't know if it was just yesterday or today, but Jack announced Geo-Hashing. And Geo-Hashing is super dope, because basically when you engage in your first peer-to-peer or like local mesh chat, now that also includes with it a geohash, which you can think of as like a zip code for wherever you are on the internet. But it's cool because the zip code doesn't like dox all of your exact GPS location.
Wherever you are in the internet, or wherever you are in the world? Sorry,
wherever you are in the physical world, wherever you are in the physical world, but accessing, I guess, over the internet to reach different people. So what's super cool now is you have like a zip code, but it's not a super doxing zip code. And then you start thinking, well, what kind of cool stuff can you do with that? Well, one cool thing you can do with that is there's an app I love called radio.garden. It's one of my favorite apps of all time. I found this, by the way, on Stacker News. So shout out to the cypherpunk community that always finds the cool stuff. And Radio Garden allows you just like basically like take a little cursor and move it anywhere around the globe and listen to all the radio stations and all the cool like local, whatever radio stations in that frequency. So you can go to Argentina or Japan or whatever. It's awesome. I love that app. And like I could immediately, that was the first thing that clicked for me. I was like, oh, this is super cool. I could just go and zoom out. We have our tiny, whatever little district here in San Francisco. I wonder what people are talking about in Buenos Aires. I wonder what people are talking about in Seoul. I wonder what people are talking about in Nigeria. Obviously, it's not everywhere yet. But Steve showed us, I think, a heat map this morning. It's like popping off in different parts around the world. So obviously, there's a lot more you can do with it. But
how does that work? So if I were at PBJ right now, I would obviously be able to connect to you via mesh. Since I'm not there, can I access? Do I have to talk to you to figure out what the geohash is for?
You can teleport
to
any location in the world from where.
So are they all listed in the app? What all the available locations are?
That's actually a great question. So let me check right now. As I recall, you can choose some specific areas. So I'm going to go right now. So I can find in real time, I can choose to go like to my country or to my district, or whatever. Right now, you do have to plug in specific zip codes or geohashes. And so the most popular one right now is 21M, 21 million, 21M, three characters. And there's currently 47 people in that chat.
That sounds like that's not a location, that's a topic.
Oh, okay. So maybe you can do both topics and locations.
Well, it sounds like a topic, not a location.
It's a good point. This could be a global chat then. My guess this would be like for everyone. I'm not sure how they created that, but it's cool. I mean, I'm looking right now, and in real time, I'm seeing 47 people. There's like a tremendous amount of conversation. Some Arabic, some English, some definitely.
Well, I'm going to be a little more critical about this. I mean, Google Buzz launched 15 plus years ago.
Right.
I was part of that launch, and like it's cool initially when people all around the world are geotagging their messages and you can pop into those different locations. But for that to be success, I mean, first of all, Google Buzz was a failure. And for it to be successful is more than just enabling geohashes and geotags, because the quality of the conversation, it matters tremendously.
Totally. So
I'm not saying Bitchat's going to fail at this.
Right.
I'm just saying like the details really matter. And so because if it becomes popular, it's going to get, the quality will get diluted. And we kind of saw that on Clubhouse a few years ago as well. Clubhouse was initially
cool,
amazing. And then when it grew, then the quality decreased. So, and also I'd hope that Bitchat is careful about introducing this, because the mesh network, like with the mesh network, I see a path for high quality signal.
Right.
Because you start with people who are physically proximate to you. You likely have some kind of affinity with them, if not the location, the event you're at, or you're literally next to them in person. So there's all kinds of reasons to believe that's going to be substantial relationship formed and content. And then I really liked the Nostr integration, because then you can then carry over to communicate with that person wherever that in the world, but you start with this initial high quality.
Totally.
So I love all that. Little concerned with the stuff, because let's say that teleporting to a location, if like almost all the people that are part of a particular community in that location aren't at that location, that just and they're not just reading but they're writing, then it doesn't does it really have anything to do with that location?
I almost
I
feel
worry about the quality.
Should be a 2-tier system then, where if you're at the location or you're favorited by people at the location, you can both read and write. And if you're just like an observer, like you want to go to Buenos Aires or whatever, you can read everything, but you can't really chat, or maybe you can chat in like a secondary side chat, or like almost like the distinction between the stage and the audience in Clubhouse. I wonder if you had like the location and the spectators kind of with a stronger distinction, so that they don't sort of get the pool muddied.
Yeah, I agree with that, or at least exploring that, and or indication in the UI for the people within a room or channel or whatever it's called, of like, just have an icon next to them, like that indicates they are actually there versus they're not.
I agree.
That should be explored as well. And actually, let me plug. We've talked before on the show once or twice about Presidio Bitcoin is going to host a Bitcoin Design Week the middle of September.
Badass.
The week of September 15th to 19th. So people should check that out in general. But a segment that I'll be leading is on Bitchat. So like Bitchat design sprints, vibe coding, and exploring things like we're talking about right now. So I'd love to explore with talented designers, attract Silicon Valley and designers, big tech designers to come to help explore how should Bitchat proceed to this and solve some of these problems, ensure that the quality of the conversations are high, take advantage of all the reasons you're excited about it.
Totally.
I share that enthusiasm. I had that same enthusiasm with the Google Buzz, and then saw how it fails, and then same with Clubhouse, saw how that fails. I mean, so I'm only pointing out that it's a really big challenge. So how can we best guide Bitchat to avoid those pitfalls?
I love all that. And I think we should actually take one step back, because you mentioned, I don't think we've explicitly, at least on this show, explained that it uses Nostr, right? And so the key piece is when you're local with someone in person, you speak over Bluetooth, so over the mesh. However, once you leave, so let's say, DK right now, if we've already favorited each other, which we did when you were in the office, although I think there might be an issue, we have to refavorite. I don't know. But anyways, still early.
My Cypher Pero has gone to sleep. It has a little moon icon.
I don't know what you're talking about, bro. Don't be
sorry. This was doxing,
Yeah, shit, live too. Fuck, man. That's right. I doxed myself a long time ago. Anyways, what's cool is, as Steve mentioned, you're then in the background communicating over Nostr relays to share those messages. And so there's so many cool things about all this. And I should mention, right? Like, first of all, I love that you're going to do this during Design Week. There's so much to explore here. And I'm just like obviously saying some things that get me excited today. But what excites me the most is, one, there's a critical mass. There was last week or 2 weeks ago, 100,000 people plus who have downloaded it around the world. I'm sure it's much more now as it's popping off again. So there's interest in the app. The app looks nice. It works. It's not super like slow and buggy, which, I love Nostr and I love all the cool stuff we have there. But a lot of times it starts off pretty, hood for the cypherpunks, which is fine. But this is like something I can like show to a normie and they can like get it. They'll use it. It's cool. And so what I see is we have I see the potential. We have a hotbed, a core of people who are using Nostr. And I would argue, maybe other than Primal and Damus, maybe it's already even overtaken them. This is the most used Nostr app in the world right now, and no one knows that it's using Nostr, which I love. And so what I see coming next to all of this, and okay, some of the questions you asked, right? Like, how do you know if someone's in that location? All these different things. That to me is the exact same question and the exact same answer as the App Store, right? Like the way we're going to do that is Web of Trust. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it's going to be like, okay, well, this person, DK, Max, and Steve all mutually favored each other. So that, builds out to saying, we know that at least according to these guys, they started in San Francisco, and then you kind of build from there.
Well, meaning you're trying to address spoofing, location spoofing, or
that's one way.
Because how big a problem? I mean, because the obvious answer is just get your location from the phone, and then that's your location. But location spoofing, it doesn't seem like a widespread problem to me. Like most people don't install that software to.
Totally.
I don't even know if it's possible on iPhone.
There's a comment right now from Program Scarcity which says, how easy would it be to spoof a device's BLE address? So because we're talking about it, I just wanted to raise, I think it would not be, my guess is that the app would not be able to find that, because you would need to have some device locally that is a BLE device. So you can't just spoof it like on the internet. You actually need a physical device present to be able to join the mesh network, right?
He says, then infer from network topology. What is this? I suppose you might need to learn how to analyze BLE signal pattern. Interesting.
But you'd need to be like a BLE chip. You'd need to have in the physical presence, right? You can't just trust it's on the internet in order. Like Bitchat, I think, will not investigate the internet. Will only investigate the Bluetooth chips that it finds nearby, right? So if you wanted to spoof, you need to like physically get a Bluetooth chip nearby, which then is arguably not even spoofing.
And to be clear, I'm not clear on this. So I'm assuming BLE is Bluetooth. Is that right?
Bluetooth low emission.
So if that's the case, if you're going and traveling around the world, like to Argentina or something, that's not happening over Bluetooth anymore. That's happening via Nostr relays, correct?
Right.
So you're using like the traditional internet to be able to. So I don't see, if you're using the traditional internet to be able to connect to a Nostr relay, then you could use like more of like a VPN to spoof. No. Like you can't spoof over the mesh, but you could spoof if you're doing internet to Nostr.
But what are you spoofing at that point?
Your location. So I could download a VPN on my app and say I'm in Buenos Aires or whatever.
Right, but if you're only connecting to people around you with your Bluetooth, you won't be in. Like if you create a distinction between people who are part of the Bluetooth mesh and people who are otherwise favorited by people, and those are connecting over the internet, or that you're connecting via a Geo-Hash, that's all application logic that you could use to create the behavior or spaces you want.
So two quick things that just jumped in my mind that are exciting. One, to be clear what I'm saying with the Web of Trust stuff and all this, like spoofing is one specific example. I think my broader point though is like you can build like different icons to show different things. Like you could have different badges where it's like DK was one of the first people to connect in whatever, the Presidio Bitcoin mesh and whatever. You could show like he's currently in SF or he's not based on this. But like the point is like
recreate Foursquare.
Yeah, exactly. You can recreate Force. And because this is all open source, right? Again, and using Nostr, you could have like a ton of different apps showing different interfaces. So you could just do a Foursquare on this. Another thing that I would like to see, because we keep saying geo-hashing, and for whatever reason, I keep thinking geo-caching. How badass would it be if we start doing geo-caching where people are just like dropping Bitcoin around the world? Like that could really catch on. Like I would love to see that. If someone wanted to do either like a Pokemon Go or like just I know I guess we talked to someone, or you guys talked to someone doing that a while ago, or a geocache where you just like literally hide Bitcoin or some cool thing around the world. Like that would be dope.
How is it hidden? Is it tied to somebody else's Bluetooth device?
I don't know, but you could just say like, hey guys, I
put a Bluetooth transmitter somewhere.
Yeah. Or I like, because you can zoom out the super local all the way up to the state or national level. You could be like, I'll tell you it's in like this state, but that's it. Find it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we talked a little bit about is Bitchat, like an application platform.
Yes.
If you wanted to create an application, like which layer do you plug in, whatever. I think that would be interesting to explore in general, and maybe at the design week as well, that could be an exploration, because there's probably a million ideas what to do, but if we cram it all into one app,
agreed,
then it kind of feels like, WeChat or something, or maybe Elon's vision for X being an everything app. But there's trade-offs with an everything app. Things that matter to you get buried, etc. And maybe AI is the new interface. But it would be interesting to, what should be the direction of Bitchat as a platform versus a singular application.
I love it. Another good hackathon too.
Yep. And then
because we have no
another direction is like, how could an AI prompt be part of it as well?
What do you mean?
Well, just like at the proto launch, they showed the fleet software having like an AI prompt. You can just like prompt it with speaking to it or text if you have a question, right?
I mean,
it's like a whole new interface. Instead of like clicking menus and icons and tabs to access functionality, you just tell it what you want.
So one immediate thought that comes is when we're saying Bitchat as a development platform, it's almost like saying in the background, it's like Nostr plus this like mesh network piece as a development platform, but it actually has adoption, which is the key. It's like so hard to actually get adoption. And I kind of see like the world, quickly siphoning off. So to the tweet you shared from Elon that we mentioned, where he says the phone basically just becomes your interface for everything in the world, like you're talking to it. I could easily see a world where it's like the companies that create the supermodels or whatever, like they probably will each have their interface for that. So Google will have one, X will have one, maybe OpenAI, Microsoft, or whatever, a couple of those. But each of those,
when you say supermodels, are you referring to amazing LLMs or more of an Elon flavor of supermodel?
Take your pick.
Okay.
His AI girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. I was in fact thinking very well-trained models. But again, take your pick. However, the broader point I'm saying is like, we need an open version of this too. And, I loved for a long time, Primal and Million was always talking about like, think about, what he's trying to build is the open version of X. And I think that applies not just to Primal, but to Nostr as an ecosystem. And I just view Bitchat as an extension of that. I view Bitchat as Nostr with some additional awesome features and adoption, which is great. And so, I increasingly think, what does it look like where, again, going back to that vision of the software apps and the information, you can access this whole, basically you create a giant database of the world that's open, read, write. The only requirement is you need a public private key to conform with the standard. And beyond that, you can do whatever the hell you want with any of this. And that's beautiful because then you can have people listed on there, agents, but it's all using the web of trust filter. So the things that really matter are, the model that you use to access all of this stuff and do things with it, and the identity piece. And as long as and the identity and the algorithms that come with that to surface specific identities, as long as you have that, this to me seems like the jumping off point for the sort of truly open AI platform or open AI ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, open source AI ecosystem.
Yeah. And I like the way, all of that stuff works for me, but I also like, I think there's something to study or learn from Bitchat, which is Bitchat uses Nostr like its infrastructure, and it doesn't say, hey, go sign up for a Nostr account. Kind of just does that in the background. And I think ultimately Nostr is infrastructure more so than like a collection of applications. But I think Bitchat's maybe one of the first examples we've seen where the app is built with that assumption instead of like, hey, go generate your private keys. It's kind of more like, here's a service, do this thing you want to do. And I could imagine that same framing could be taken to like an LLM chat experience, which is just like, here's a thing, you can use it and don't worry about the fact that it happens to use Nostr, but Nostr gives you a lot of advantages as infrastructure for this.
Yeah, 100% agree. So I guess for me, the summary of where things are at with Bitchat, I get excited about all the possibilities. I get worried though that if they all get crammed into the app, that it muddies the waters and then it's like a crappy app for everything and everyone.
Yep.
So I think there needs to be a lot of discipline there. Maybe Bitchat as a platform allows for that exploration while keeping things siloed.
Yes.
I don't know, but and then with I really like the mesh network and Nostr connections, and I just hope that these new geo-hashes head in the right direction, the wrong direction. I mean, one thing we talked about prior to the show if there's a quorum of people who are actually at a location, then that can give it enough authenticity so that location, that the quality there is good. And I think if you mix in like what we said earlier, if you're not actually there, then you have sort of read access but not write access. Maybe having visual distinctions on the icon next to people's names, etc. I think that treatment is important.
Yeah, I love all that.
And just to clarify, I think if you're not there, the default, if you're just kind of browsing, might be nice to be read only. But in my case, I'm not at Presidio Bitcoin right now, but there is a Presidio Bitcoin member who has favorited me. So even though I'm not present, maybe I can participate in the real chat. Because I think ultimately we're just trying to say, can you recreate the norms or standards around who gets to talk where, versus necessarily saying everybody, has to be in the same place in order to chat with each other, right? Because like the Nostra mutual favoriting already is sort of a dipping the toe in the water outside of that, core restriction that was the initial part of it. But I'm wondering too, do we know, I'd asked a while back and I never got a lot of clarity on this. I don't know if you guys have heard more recently, but do we know sort of, I assume the protocol is just open source software and stuff. If somebody wanted to write their own Bitchat client, ByteChat or MaxChat or something, and wanted to have a different set of features or a different take on how it works, but integrate with the mesh networking or sort of the messaging system of Bitchat, do we know if that's like possible today or if it's restricted or limited somehow?
It's a great question. I mean, I assume because it's using the white noise protocol, like anyone could be able to build something that's interoperable, but I don't know. We should figure that out for next week.
I haven't checked it. It wouldn't surprise me if early on, at least, maybe the binary only accepts things signed by that binary or something, just to try to keep it a little clean. But in the longer run, I'd hope that there's some way to decide what other apps can participate in those messaging channels. Because it does seem like if you can take some of these ideas, experiment with them outside without sort of muddying the waters. Like if you want to try these like location geohash things and let everybody talk or let nobody talk or only people who are there, you can sort of mix and match different takes on that. If that was more of an experimental surface, then you could let those experiments play out, and the good ones could be incorporated in the more broadly distributed apps, and the bad ideas can sort of fade away.
I would just like to throw back out two of the ideas. We've mentioned this before, but that I would love to see, and maybe this is something we can actually explore further in the design week. But when using Bitchat as a development platform, the two things that jump out to me again, local Bitcoins, someone make local Bitcoins on Bitchat. This is going to be awesome. And it's going to be really important in the future. And the compute marketplace. Like I could see something where, because to your point, you're like someone actually has to compile and run the code. And we've talked about all the advantages of having an open marketplace as things get, as restrictions come down all around the internet. Imagine you could say, well, I need to run whatever, this operation. I need to do this thing. But in El Salvador, I know there's a server there that will do this thing because they're okay with that. But maybe, similar to VPNs today. I think that's going to be very interesting.